Okay, so here are the rails, and here is our show.
Completely off. Completely gone today. What in the world? Derailed.
Yay, you're here. Welcome to the CK and GK podcast. Let's get going.
It's Tuesday!
Oh my goodness, that was a big one. We're so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us today.
Welcome to CK and GK. We're the show that teaches you all the things we had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
With me today is Caitlin, who will never give you up and is never going to let you down.
Yay! Everyone loves a little Rick roll, right? Yeah?
Right.
Okay, well, I've got Jenny with me. She's the sassy producer of our show, just like Roz Doyle for the Dr. Fraser Crane Show on KACL 780 AM. She does a really good Fraser Crane impression, too.
I'm listening. And by impression, she just means I've seen every episode and quote it often. And most of the time, people don't laugh along with me because that's not really part of our society's lexicon is Fraser quotes.
No.
But Caitlin is not the only person who's here with me. Caitlin, introduce our guest today.
We are so thrilled to have our new friend. I guess we could call you that, right? We have Kimball Lewis.
We'll see how this goes.
maybe we're not friends yet. It might be too soon.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. Too soon.
All right.
Yeah. We have Kimball Lewis with us, who is the CEO of EmpoweringParents.com. So thank you so much for joining us today, Kimball. We're so glad you're here.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks, Jenny. It's good to be here.
I'm so glad you're here, too. When we talk a little bit about my morning, you will see that the universe has brought us together today.
For a reason. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Before we get too far in here, I want to do some shout outs. I don't know about you, but the Spotify Wrapped thing has taken over my social media. So I don't know if that's true for you, but I think it's such an interesting and cool way to say, hey, we've been stalking you all year long. Let's just show you how cool it is that we've been stalking you. And here's all your stats and data for the year of all the things.
Right.
So terrifying and also so cool at the same time. But one of our listeners, Carly, made sure to tell me that we made it into her Spotify Wrapped, and I was so thrilled that we made it into someone's, and it was really sweet of her to tell us. So thanks, Carly, for telling us that we made it into your Spotify Wrapped. That's awesome.
That is awesome. We also made it to my Spotify Wrapped.
Mine too.
Okay, so here's the great thing, though. CK and GK is my number 2 most listened to podcast because my number 1 is Let Me Bore You to Sleep with Jason Newland.
Right? I mean, mine is my number 3. So my own show is number 3 on my own Spotify Wrapped. It's so hilariously ridiculous. I can't. But I mean, I'm glad that I listen to my own stuff and enjoy it, right? That's the whole point of doing this. Yeah.
I just got an email about that. I wasn't sure what you were talking about. I'm like, wait, I just got a Spotify.
Oh,
yeah. There is. Yeah. So it'll be a fun way to see all the things that you've been doing this year, too.
It says open Wrapped. Do I
go for
have
it?
To log in?
It's basically a way to tell if you are a parent or not, because they tell you the top shows, top artists, top songs you listen to.
Right.
For the 4th year in a row, our number 1 song has been Bonanza, or the theme to Bonanza, by Johnny Cash, because that is the song that calms down our now 4-year-old.
Yeah, mine has lots and lots and lots of Imagine Dragons on there because my child loves Imagine Dragons in a way that is not unhealthy, but we're getting close. We're to a point where it's no, you cannot request Imagine Dragons in the car for a 3-minute car ride. I will not. That, and we don't talk about Bruno is the other one.
Right. Well, my number 2 most played song is Zombie by the Cranberries.
Nice.
Also a request of a 4-year-old.
I listened to that this morning.
Did you really?
Vibe. Yeah, it's a vibe. It was in the car. It came on the radio, and it's a vibe.
Oh, okay. You didn't just you know what I'm in the mood for today? Little cranberry action.
I don't have a Cranberries playlist, but if it shows up, and I'm not going to skip it. I love that song.
My first ever camp counselor was named Cranberry.
Really?
And it was about that time.
Okay.
Early 90s.
That's-
All right,
all
you got
right.
some sports news for us?
I
All I
do.
can say about sports is I am now in the struggle bus because I want to boycott World Cup, but my students are so excited about it.
Yeah, it's gotten exciting.
And I really want to support them, and I want to support their love of the game. And I don't want to say terrible things about it. So I'm just saying, yeah, we can put it on. And then I just try and work on something else in the background.
Yeah, no, I've succumbed. I didn't want to, but I have. And interestingly, now that Iran and Qatar are out, now FIFA is allowing people to have protest banners and wear rainbow armbands and stuff like that. So I thought that must have been a condition upon
That's an interesting
that.
development.
Yeah, exactly. But I do have another sports update. And this is
Okay.
completely personal. And I'm just going to like freak out a little bit here. Many of you who listen to this show, because you're probably my friends and family, know that I went to the University of Colorado.
Go
University of Colorado, go Buffs, yay. So we've had some pretty bad football recently, like 10 years.
Oh, you guys have a football team?
Hey, we were
I
national
thought you
champions.
canceled the program.
No, so much smack talking from the Aggie over here. Well,
Oh, hey, we beat LSU. Might as well. I mean,
right.
we weren't doing anything with our season, so we might
Right.
as well ruin someone else's.
There
All
you
right,
go.
keep going.
That's fair. Well, the University of Colorado has offered the head football coaching position to Deion Sanders.
No, Deion
Yes.
Sanders.
Deion freaking Sanders.
The prime
time. Yes. Neon Deion. We've offered him. Now, hold on. It gets better. Okay, so as of this recording, Coach Prime is preparing his team. He currently
Coach
is the
Prime?
coach for. Yeah, no, that's what everyone's calling him, is Coach Prime. So he currently coaches for the Jackson State Tigers, and they're playing in the Southwestern Athletic Conference this weekend. This is kind of a big deal that this is happening for that team. They're currently undefeated, and they're the favorite to win the conference championship. So my guess is whatever's going on there, he's been very open about the offer, but he's not going to say squat until that game is over, right? Because you can't
Right.
do that to your players.
No.
But I am dying because I really think it's going to happen. I really think that the head coach of the University of Colorado is going to be Deion Sanders, and you're rolling your eyes right now because I think you don't believe me, but I swear
No.
I really think it's going to happen.
Okay, I am rolling my eyes because I am thinking about how much money Colorado is going to
they're
make
off
of people
gosh.
just buying tickets to go see
Oh.
the coach.
I know. I mean, first of all, we do have the best mascot in all of college football. I don't care what
I
anyone
agree.
says. Ralphie is the best. She's amazing. That said,
Also, I went to a high school whose mascot was Buffalo, and we stole all of your emblems. So
they're good. It's good colors. It's good emblem. It's all great. But yes, this is going to be like another attraction. You go see Ralphie, and then you go see Deion freaking Sanders on the sideline. Are you kidding me? And for those of you who don't know who that is, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on Deion Sanders. If you're our age, if you're elder millennial or older, you probably have heard that name at the very least, even if you don't know anything about him. But during his career, he was named to 8 Pro Bowls, which is huge. Received 6 first-team All-Pros and made consecutive Super Bowl appearances in Super Bowl 29 with the 49ers and 30 with the Cowboys, and ended up winning both of those, right? So he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He's kind of a big deal. Deion freaking Sanders. Prime time.
He played for the New York Yankees.
Yes.
I have to look this up, but I'm pretty sure that he is one of the few people that played in this Super Bowl and the World Series. the
I
same
mean,
year.
whoa,
Wow.
that's crazy.
he's
That's
a
crazy.
regular Bo
Something like-
Jackson.
I might have that wrong, but there's a very famous play where Bo Jackson tries to throw out Deion Sanders at home.
Oh
plate,
my
and Bo
gosh,
Jackson
that's
Oh my gosh.
amazing. That's
Kansas
so
City Royals.
good.
So that's one of my obsessions right now. I have multiple, but tell me about yours, because I'm I need to stop talking about Deion Sanders for a minute.
Okay, so if you are an avid listener, you know that one of our episodes was about researching appliances, how to purchase appliances for your home, what kind of questions you need to be asking. And it was instigated by me buying a new washer and a dishwasher. Our new dishwasher plays a little song when it's gone. The little song goes, da, 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 da. Okay, so That doesn't mean anything.
No.
Unless you are of the Gen X on the line millennial life that I am, and you remember the Quiznos commercials with the little tarsiers playing guitar.
Oh my goodness.
I love the subs. Do you remember this?
No, I don't remember.
There's Crispy and the Crispy. Okay, so we have to link it in the show notes. But it was a series of commercials for Quiznos with these tiny little animals with giant eyes, and they were cartoons, and they were badly drawn, holding instruments, singing songs about Quiznos. They're toasty and delicious. They have a pepper bar. And it's the same tune as my dishwasher is done. So every time it's done, someone in my family sings, they have a pepper bar.
That's hilariously adorable. And also, what? Like,
right. So we were telling this story to someone else who also does not remember these obscure commercials for Quiznos.
No.
And Abby says, oh, well, show them the song. And then she follows it up with, you might have to look up on YouTube. I don't think it's on Spotify.
Oh.
It's like, no.
No,
this weird jingle.
Right. No, it's not going to be on
sang
Spotify,
by a couple of tarsiers. It's probably not on Spotify.
Yeah, no.
But if it was, it would definitely be on my Wrapped.
I mean, if all the times that it's playing with running the dishwasher, I'm sure it would.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Wrapped, that is one of my obsessions right now. So Deion Sanders, yes, also Spotify Wrapped. So there's two versions of this, in case you didn't know. There's one for podcasters, so you get to see all of the stats for your show. But then there's my personal one where it's all the things that I've listened to throughout the year. And I have to tell you, we also did an episode about how you and I went to a concert and how to do this if you're our age, like how to how to go to a concert and enjoy yourself if you're our age. And that concert was the Wombats. Well, apparently my obsession with them has really just like hit a new level, because I think I spent something like 1,700 minutes of my life with the Wombats playing this year.
Did they tell you if you're like in the top 5% of their listenership?
I think they did, and I can't remember what it was, but I tweeted at them like, hey guys, we are a little crazy. I spent a lot of time with you, and didn't get an answer because I'm sure I looked like some sort of obsessive fan freak, but that's okay.
That's fine.
So yeah, that was
they
right.
were my top artists too, but I am in the top 3% of Foo Fighters listeners.
That's not surprising to me. 3% is a little high. Like I would have thought, top 10-ish, but that tells me that they're on a lot at y'all's house for sure.
Yes.
Nice. I like it. All right. Well, do you have any gems for the week? Anything great?
Okay. Kimball. This is the part of the show that is everyone's favorite. And if not, they pretend that it is. Because this is when we tell the stories that either have someone else cringing or laughing, but whatever it is, it's mostly at our expense.
Yeah.
And I say this is the show where we tell you what we had to learn the hard way. This is one of those times. My son needed a haircut. He is 4 years old. You'll get to know him a little bit better later in the show. And he was going to get his haircut with my husband's clippers, and then we were going to clean up the areas around his ears and back behind his neck with a tiny little electric razor that I, spoiler alert, used to shave the space between my eyebrows. Okay.
Didn't expect you to say that. Okay. Oh, goodness.
Right? Like, we all have things that we're not proud of, and that's one of them. Okay, so I'm going to clean up his little ears, and I said, look, it's not going to hurt at all. It's going to be fine. And I turn it on, and I push it up against my hand so that he can see it doesn't hurt. And then I push it up against his arm so he sees it doesn't hurt. And then he looks at me and says, it causes invisible damage. Oh. And I just thought, that's the reason that therapy exists. Invisible damage. And maybe it's the name of my next band.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like that emotional damage like meme that's going around right now. Yeah, or has been going around for a while.
Invisible damage.
Invisible damage. Oh, poor baby. Well, my son, my son is a character. he and I have sort of developed this ritual where, my husband will read the story at night and then I will stay in the room for a little bit and just kind of have a little snuggle. And we talk about things that happened during the day. Sometimes he, wants to look at a video of a koala, whatever. It's just sort of a little bit of, mommy and Sammy time. Before I leave, for a while, I was being asked to spray what we call monster spray every single night. And monster spray, just so we all are aware, is like a water bottle, a squirt bottle that is filled with water and like 3 or 4 drops of lavender essential oil. And I just spray it.
Oh,
yeah.
If you want to keep the zombies away, you just use orange oil. That's what we use at our house.
Oh, smart. That's a good idea. Yeah. And I have it like labeled and it says monster spray with stickers and like we refill it and he knows that it's a special thing that only works in his room and we don't spray it all over the house. Right. So there's that. So one night this week, I haven't been asked to spray it in a while, but I was asked earlier this week to do that. And I said, what's going on? Are you feeling afraid tonight? And he goes, No, I'm not feeling afraid, but maybe just spray it just in case I get the heebie-jeebies. And I was like, heebie-jeebies?
Yeah, and I accidentally turned 70 between now and then.
Where did you get heebie-jeebies? I don't think I've ever said heebie-jeebies in front of my child, so I have no idea where that... I mean, sure, it came from school, right? Like, it had to come from there, but I was like, okay. And he just kind of looks at me and gives me this little grin, and he was like, it's okay, Mom. I won't get the heebie-jeebies. I just want you to make sure.
Also, right. I need to remark that I am seeing this quote on our show notes, and heebie-jeebies is spelled correctly, which I didn't even know there was a correct spelling for that. But there is.
Is it spelled correctly? I didn't know that.
There's no wavy lines underneath. It must be real.
Oh, all right. Cool.
So good job, Caitlin.
Thanks. It's probably going to be spelled wrong later. But all
right. We are going to break in just a moment for a promo for some friends of ours. They are an Earpods In podcast. Mm-hmm. Give them a try.
Yep.
A Nefarious Nightmare is a true crime podcast focusing on lesser-known crimes and crimes against those deemed extra vulnerable.
Every now and then, we cover more well-known crimes due to the fact that it is relevant or even interesting regarding the cases we cover. And the B is a symbol for all victims as we recognize their strength, resilience, and vulnerability.
So join us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or just about any podcast platform. Remember, when you mess with the bees,
you get the hive.
Okay, we're back. And we are here with Kimball Lewis, the CEO of EmpoweringParents.com. And we are ready to learn all about the reasons why kids act out, how we can react really well, and what families and teachers can do to totally transform their family dynamics.
The total transformation. How do we do this?
Have you heard the ads? They don't run anymore, but they used to run on radio.
I think I actually heard one on the radio. Yes.
Yeah, wait. I mean, that's how I got introduced. First of all, was when I was driving home one day, and this guy James Lehman came on the air, and he says, "If you're driving home expecting a fight with your kid when you walk in the door, just know that you don't have to attend every fight that you're invited to."
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, that's genius. Right? I don't have to attend. Like, that's great. I don't have to attend that fight. So that was my first introduction to him, because he has this very thick Brooklyn accent, and he's very memorable voice when you hear him. So that was my introduction.
That feels very profound.
Yeah. I have a picture in my mind of like RSVPing no. Like, no, not attending.
Yeah, that is. RSVP no, I'm not going to attend that argument.
I love that.
And there's a reason for it too. There's like a legit reason for it. It's not just like I'm not going to go because I don't feel like it. There's a real reason for it, which is that your kid's trying to very often drag you into an argument because it's whether they realize it or not, it's a technique that they use to wear you out to solve a problem for them, which is they either get to do something that they're not supposed to do, or they get out of doing something they're supposed to do, whatever it is that they're trying to do. But it's actually becomes a problem-solving way that the kid gets what they want or avoid what they are not trying to do.
Okay, that makes sense.
But anyway, that's how you might have heard of James Lehman, he's sort of the founder. He's passed away, actually. That's why I'm here now. He passed away a few years ago. So we're continuing on his legacy.
How wonderful of you.
Of parenting advice. So
All right. So you said that when I'm being drawn into an argument, it's a kid's way of trying to get what they want or avoid what they don't. Give us a little detail there.
or let me put it a slightly different way, which is they're trying to solve a problem.
I like that.
So when kids are acting out, they're trying to solve a problem. And what they've done is they've turned to acting out, abusive, obnoxious behavior, fighting, those types of things to solve their problem. And the problem that someone who's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, adolescent, the problem they're usually facing has to do with things like they're not able to meet responsibilities the way they need to. So like how old are your kids?
I have a 4-year-old and an 11-year-old.
Yeah, so 4 is like too young for our programs. We say 5 onwards. But as they start getting like older, like 9, 10, 11 or whatever, they start having responsibilities in life that a 4-year-old just doesn't have.
Right.
And those responsibilities are problems. Like when you wake up in the morning and the alarm goes off, like that's the first problem you have, which is I got to get out of bed because I'm supposed to be somewhere. Like I have to be at school, I have to do whatever. That's a problem that needs to be solved. Or if you have to do a chore and you don't want to do it, that's a problem to be solved. And a lot of the ways, instead of actually doing the chore, one way you can solve that problem is by acting out enough that the parent gets so tired of asking and fighting about that they stop asking you to do the chore any longer. And so in your mind, that actually worked for me. My responsibility, the thing that I was supposed to do, not even expecting me to do it anymore.
Do you believe there's a cognitive decision made, or is it just kind of subconsciously that kids have kind of connected these things?
Yeah, I think it's more of the latter. I don't think that if they throw a tantrum and they get the thing they were having a tantrum about, like they'll remember, that actually worked last time. And it depends. So a lot of kids will mature and come up with, just through coaching by their parents, come up with what we call effective problem solving skills, which is effective ways to meet those problems, which is what we want. And most kids are able to do that with a little bit of coaching. Some kids don't figure it out very easily, and it's not necessarily the parents' fault or anything. It's just that some kids are more of a challenge. I think we all know that.
Sure.
Like we have so many parents that come to us and have 3 kids. 2 of them are fine.
Right. And then there's the one.
Reasonably fine. Not difficult. And one of them's like, oh gosh, like this one is a handful. Yeah. And it's not like it's not a different parent. It's the exact same parent. So it's not that the parent is doing something different. It's just that some kids learn how to solve their problems more effectively, more easily than others. And those that don't need to be parented a little bit differently.
But what I'm hearing from you is that you don't see it as malicious. It's just not solving the problem effectively or learning to do it quickly.
The problem is that these poor problem techniques, they work.
Yeah. That's
why they're doing it. They work. They actually get out of the responsibility. If you've been fighting with your kids over doing their chores, after a while you realize, and this is true, this is the God's honest truth, it's true. It's easier to do the chore yourself than to fight with your kids.
Absolutely.
Oh, 100%. Completely agree.
And a parent will rationalize and go, it's just easier for me to do it myself. And then they absolve their child of that responsibility. And in the child's mind, well, that worked. And they turn to that as their problem solving skill. And maybe they internalize it, maybe they know it, but a lot of times it's just, they kind of fell into it. They have these problem solving skills, which are not what you want. But it works for them. And as long as it keeps working, then they keep doing it. Some kids, you could be the worst parent in the world, and some kids turn out perfectly fine, right? But we're not talking about like awesome parents or great parents, or we're just talking about like your average parents who are just trying to do a good job. And some of them have kids that are just hard, like they're challenging. And a lot of it's how for whatever reason, some kids learn to solve their problems effectively and kind of figure things out, and some kids don't. And here's where the real problem is, Jenny and Caitlin, is when you don't have huge problems when you're 7, 8, 9, 10. But as you start getting into like high school and then like your later teen years, if you haven't learned how to effectively solve problems and your go-to strategy is to act out and to be abusive, your problems are so big now that you have to really act out to solve them, and you have to do it all the time. And you might even turn to like more violent type behaviors and stuff. So it's very important that kids start to learn how to solve their problems more effectively. We basically see there's 2 ways around that. One is that those poor problem solving skills that they're using, you have to make sure they don't work for them anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So what that means is there's a consequence. When they apply those poor problem solving skills, they don't get what they wanted, and there's a consequence. That alone doesn't solve the problem, though. That just means that what they've been doing doesn't work anymore. And then the parent also, or the teacher, has to then coach them as to what an alternative problem-solving thing looks like. You need to kind of help them along, because a lot of times we forget what it's like to be 7 or 6 or 8. We forget that things that we take for granted, they might not know.
Right.
and they might need some help. They might need help learning how to discipline themselves to put the electronics down when they're supposed to. And
So this is work that I'm doing with second and third graders. I work at a research institution that is a micro school. The students are there to learn, but so are the teachers. We study teaching and learning, and one of the things that I do with the younger learners is metacognitive coaching out loud. And so when a prompt is put on the board, I say, okay, what are you noticing? All right, so that's a count of 6. How many 6 do we have? And actually asking out loud the questions that we hope one day they will internally ask themselves. So I love the idea of part of your program is helping parents learn how to coach their children through understanding their problem and managing it themselves.
yeah, and that's actually, if you I'm going to make a pitch for our website, which is empoweringparents.com. If you come and sign up for our newsletter, sooner or later you're going to get an email, because we send you emails with articles. But one of them will be the title, "You Can't Punish Your Child into Good Behavior." And if you're solely focused on consequences, we don't like to use the term punishment. We use consequences. To a child, they can't tell the difference.
Right.
They both don't feel
Right.
good. But consequences, you do it for a reason, and it's a learning process for them. A punishment's just like, whack, don't do that again. Like, that's not effective. So, but if you sign up for a newsletter, you'll certainly get an email that talks about how you can't punish your child into good behavior. You need effective consequences, and you need to coach them as to what to do instead of those poor behavior things. They don't always know, and they need coaching. Even if they do know, they need coaching as to like how to not revert to those bad behaviors. So what do you do when your sister's driving you so crazy and you're not supposed to hit her, but last time you hit her, a parent can coach their child is like, look, when she's bothering you and you start to get frustrated, don't throw your game controller and don't hit her. Here's what you do instead. Just walk away for 5 minutes or come to see me or do whatever. Explain to them what they're going to do. You can actually role play the whole thing with them. It might seem silly at first, but role playing is huge. Role playing really helps a lot. And then the next time they do it, like you'll watch them, they'll actually try it. And when they do it successfully. It's very, very, very important to point out and say, hey, you did that. I saw how your sister was frustrating you and you didn't hit her. You did what we talked about. And I'm like really proud of you for doing that. It's very important to point these things out.
I love that you said specifically what you noticed.
Right.
Because if you just say, hey, good job managing that feeling with your sister, that's not enough.
Right.
I noticed that she was driving you crazy, and you and I had talked about taking a 5-minute break, and I saw you take it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And the parents that come to us are dealing with kids that they have enough behavior problems at their wit's end. That's almost like the universal comment we get. I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what to do anymore. So it's not like this has happened once or twice or whatever. So for these kids that are having behavior problems, when they do something right and you like what they did, you have to point it out, because you realize they're getting negative feedback all the time. They just get a flood of negative feedback all the time because they're not solving problems right. They're getting yelled at.
If they're having trouble at school, how many times is their name being called in a positive way?
Right.
Probably not often.
Right.
So we have to make sure that at home we're offering that.
Yep.
Well, and I mean, that's going to translate to better things at school too, right? So, I mean, everyone wants to hear their name called positively. Nobody wants to be called out and feel like they're the only ones getting in trouble all the time. So, I mean, if the acting out is causing negative feelings, that coaching becomes even more important, because then you do start to feel better when you start to see the results of the coaching that you've had, right? So that's going to change everything for that child: academics, behavior in school, all those things. And I'm thinking about my own child and how he is one of the children that you are describing, Kimball. He's, my husband and I are doing the best that we can, and some days it works and some days it doesn't. And the thing that really helps us with him is those "I saw you" statements that you just mentioned, right? Like, I saw you get frustrated, and then I saw you take a deep breath and walk away from the thing that was frustrating you. Or I saw you almost throw that, and then you thought differently and put it down. That was amazing. Thank you for doing that. And we always say thank you at the end of it after we say what we saw. But just the power of those "I saw you" statements, I'm speaking to on a personal level. They're incredible.
Yeah, and you're doing another thing that when you do that also, you're modeling behavior to your child. You're modeling the way you work with someone who he must know that he frustrates your it's your son, right?
He's 6. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he must know that, like, he frustrates you, because if you're a normal parent and you have a child that's like frustrating you, like you blow up sometimes. And when you commonly point those things out and do that thing, like it's a good calm modeling behavior for kids. Because our kids like listen to us 1%, like like they listen to us, but what they really listen to is what we do. They listen to our actions, not our words. And when you calmly address it like that, then I think that's very helpful for them.
Okay.
Can I add one more thing about that?
Absolutely.
You reminded me of one other thing. So pointing out the good stuff when they do it is very important. But I want to be very, very cautious here. And this is a place where sometimes what we say is not always popular with everyone. And that is, you can't just say, you're great, you're great, you're great when they're not doing things well. Like James Lehman talks about this a lot. And this was like 15 years ago when he was talking about this. The esteem movement was, he did not like the whole esteem movement. He felt that, he agreed 100% that kids that have behavior problems very often have esteem problems. He goes, but he did not believe that it was effective. That it was effective to try to raise their esteem in order to get their behavior to improve. He found the opposite working with kids, which is that when you teach them to behave better, their esteem goes up.
Because it's
The
genuine.
behavior drives the
Right.
esteem. It is genuine, and they've earned it, and they know, and now they have self-control. And kids that have self-control over their emotions and everything else, their esteem goes up. So if you can teach them that stuff, their esteem will go up, and that's effective. He found it very ineffective to try to like artificially raise their esteem. Like, great, you're 10 and you tied your shoelace, awesome. Like, okay, like you're supposed to be able to do that. Like, that's not like that's not helpful. Like he said that didn't usually help. You wanted to be honestly help them work on their behavior, and he says the esteem usually follows. So when he had this great quote, which is you can't feel yourself to better behavior, but you can behave yourself to better feelings.
I love that.
And if you've ever been through cognitive behavior type therapy, or if you have a therapy background, you know that like it's active. Like you're coached to actively not talk negative to yourself. We all have a little voice in our head, and that little voice is by and large negative.
Right.
And you have to coach yourself to not listen to that voice or to shut that voice up. It's uncanny how it's negative. It's like almost never positive. There's a few people out there that it's positive, and I'm wondering if they're taking drugs. But who knows?
Maybe
But-
lots of antidepressants.
Exactly. Yeah. But I'm gonna make a comparison, which is that have you ever I'm gonna describe something that has never happened, which was that there's a Facebook thread or there's a thread on social media, and suddenly it just turns really positive, and everyone's all positive. It doesn't work that way. It always goes negative. It always goes negative. Just the same. It's almost like what that is on social media is what's going on in our own head when we talk to ourselves, because you're there by yourself typing. It's kind of like that's a reflection of what goes on in our own little brains. That little voice is not a good voice.
Wow.
What's so important to not listen to that little voice is that little voice is by and large wrong. It's not correct in what it's telling you. Like if you're driving and you go, I always get stuck in red lights. I always get stuck at the red light, and you're frustrated. The truth is you don't always get stuck at red lights.
Right.
Or if you say I'm no good, I'm always terrible at something. The truth is you're not. If you give your honest assessment of what's going on, you're actually probably pretty decent at it. Sometimes you do well, sometimes you don't. You might say I'm the worst parent in the world because you have a child that you're struggling with. The truth is you're not. The truth is you can point out there's a whole bunch of things. If you write it down on a piece of paper and have someone objectively in front of a jury look at what you're doing, if you're what we call the good enough parents, the parents who are trying to do their best, and they have the normal struggles everyone else has, that a jury would say, yeah, you guys are fine parents. You're good parents. You've got kids you're struggling with, just like everyone else.
It sounds like a lot of the research around fixed and growth mindset, right? That you
Yes.
hear these statements in your head and you have to answer them with a growth mindset statement and say,
Right.
this is too hard. Well, it's just not easy enough yet.
Right.
What is that called? I haven't heard that one before.
That's
Growth mindset?
fixed versus
Yeah.
growth mindset. It's the work of Carol Dweck. DWECK.
I'm gonna look that up.
She has some really great TED Talks. She's very popular in the education space right now and has been for a number of years, just because we are constantly having to tell our kids, you're not good at this yet. You will get good at this, right? Same thing with behavior. And I mean, Jenny and I are speaking from a public education background. And she's teaching math right now. I did teach math for a number of years. And in math in particular, you will hear really negative self-talk from kids. I'm so bad at this. I'm stupid.
not a math person.
I'm not a math person. Their parents will say, I'm not a math person. And the first thing I always would say to my kids was, yes, you are, because you have to be a math person. Everyone is a math person. You can't just say that you're not going to be a math person and then not learn it, right? We can change that. So, we're going to model the behavior that we wish to see. And I'm going to say, mathematicians are not lazy, but we are efficient. And mathematicians are going to work on this, that, or the other, whatever it might be, literally X, Y, and Z, right? To try and change that Right. That's a little math joke for you guys. Just to change that mindset. But I'm thinking about this in my own life and how the number of times that I've said to myself, man, I am not a good mom. Or, man, I really do hit every red light. Like, what is wrong with me and the way that I'm driving? But it's really not that. It's just that little voice in my head that I am not good at shutting off. And I'm sure that my own child has that same thing when he's constantly being told, this is not the behavior that I wish to see in my classroom, or this is not the behavior that I expect from you at home, or whatever it might be. It's really interesting.
That's exactly right. I like the math thing that you were saying also with, if I don't know if you guys are familiar with Khan Academy.
Mm-hmm. Very much.
Sal Khan, and I've been following him for years and years and years and years. He has a great little video where he talks about 100 or so years ago, only about 15 to 20% of people were literate.
Mm-hmm.
And it was thought that most people don't have the cognitive ability to learn how to read and write.
Wow.
Like that was just a fact. Like only people that have certain brain power can read and write. And he said now literacy rates in most developed countries are in like the 99%.
Right.
And no one wonders whether someone can learn to read and write. And he feels that mathematics is almost the same way, is that you can learn up to calculus. Most people can, because of the way some things are structured and other stuff, like they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do it magically. It has to be done through doing lots of problems and understanding and stuff, he says, but we underestimate what people's abilities are.
Absolutely. We teach math through logic and sense making rather than procedural memorization. So we have kids who are 6th or 7th grade and they don't know their times tables because we have taught them to rationally find what 6 groups of 7 is rather than just memorize that it's 42.
That's interesting.
And yeah, no, it's incredible. And so they'll say, okay, well, 6 tens is 60, so I need to lose 18 from that.
Yeah. That's a good way to do that.
And rather than spend time on memorizing and mad minutes and all of that, we tell them, like you said, Kimball, learning isn't magic. It comes from,
put the time into it.
It takes time. It takes multiple exposures to the same thing over and over and over again. And, you know, if you're a parent working on a behavioral issue, I'm sure you've seen it present more than once. So learning's not magic, and it takes sense making. It takes connecting ideas in your brain.
Right.
Yeah. And the reason I point that out is that we will argue and let parents know that behavior is a skill. It's learning.
I completely agree.
Right.
So we talk about kids with behavior problems, not problem kids. I mean, I might use that word from time to time, but we want to make sure we're not labeling we're saying the kid with a behavior problem.
Right.
The label's tough because the label suggests that it's there forever, and it's more like you have things to work on, but everyone has things to work on.
Absolutely.
It's just the list of things that we have to work on are a little bit different.
Right.
So.
And I love the idea of practicing, right? I mean, if you think about it as though behavior is a skill, you practice the things that you want to get better at, right? Like if you want to get better at basketball, you dribble 25 times in each hand when you're 5 years old, and then you have to shoot 10 baskets and make 10 of them. Like, right. You know what I mean? You develop that. If you want to get better at reading, you have to have time with text, right? You have to do that. If you want to get better at the behavior, you have to practice it, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to see that change in real time and see that development. So that's a super important point. I love the connection to learning it as a skill as opposed to just,
And you have to develop muscle memory. Like I grew up playing tennis, and you could watch all the tennis videos in the world, but until you get on the court and start swinging the racket, you're not going to have the muscle memory, because it's two things. One, you have to understand it, but you got to have the muscle memory. You have to do it repeatedly over and over again. And you watch even professional golfers will still practice over and over and over again. It's that muscle memory to get the muscle memory down. And it's the same with behavior. And it's one of the reasons why we're very optimistic and we have such good luck with parents that come to us, is that with our programs, we also offer coaching. The reason you're coming to us is because there's a problem, and it's the same problem that's happening over and over again. So you know it's going to happen again. And so what we tell parents is, let's plan for the next time, so that when it happens the next time, you're not in reactive mode. You're in let's put the plan in the place mode, and you just execute. And that is a couple of things. One is you're very thoughtful ahead of time about what you're going to do when it happens again, so you know what you're going to do. You don't make any rash decisions like come up with some you're grounded for a year thing that they won't take seriously and you'll never do anyway. And third of all, we tell parents that being calm is very important. Calm in the face of these things is very important. And you're much calmer if you've planned out ahead of time what you're going to do. You know it's going to happen rather than just being reactive. And it's the same things. And you practice it. And the first couple times, maybe things don't go so well. And you come back to our coach and we talk about it, what went well, what didn't go well. Try it again. Like your approach was right or whatever, but it takes it like 3 or 4 tries. And then when they get it, they get good at it. And when they get good at it, they have confidence. When they have confidence, then it builds up, and the child understands that too. And the child actually reacts very differently when a parent who used to be yelling and screaming at them and acting all frustrated now comes at them very calmly, very matter-of-factly, and using very carefully constructed words that the child's going to understand without wondering what else is going on. And it's for parents that if you have that child that's struggling, they need to be talked to differently. Not as many words a lot of times, and need to be very straightforward and direct as to what's going on and direct them to what needs to happen.
Car problems used to really stress me out. When my car wouldn't start or I had a flat tire, it was a major deal for me. And then I joined AAA. And I knew I had a plan in place. And when I wake up in the morning and I have a flat tire, it's frustrating, but I know how to deal with it because I can call AAA and they're going to come and take care of it for me. And it sounds like you kind of offer the same weight taken off our shoulders. That's like, okay, I have a plan. The behavior might come up again, but when it does, it will come up again.
Right.
Right.
It will.
It will. If it doesn't, God bless you, because
that's a miracle, right?
Awesome.
Right.
But
Right.
So when the behavior comes up again, I already have a plan in place that I've rehearsed, and I'm ready to put into motion. And like you said, it's not reactive; it's responsive at that point. All right, well,
exactly.
Pull out the AAA card and call the 800 number.
Right.
And if you do enough of these, like you have 3 or 4 different types of behaviors that you've been working on or whatever, when some comes out of left field, your chances that you're going to deal with it more effectively is way higher.
Of course.
And we tell parents, if you're not sure what to do about it, you could just say to your child, "We're going to talk about this later." And then you can go off and be like, "Oh gosh, what am I going to do about
exactly.
this one?" And you don't have to come up with a consequence immediately. You can tell your child, "I need to think about this one." And we give them all those different types of techniques, and it makes things a lot easier. The parent has more confidence going into the situation with a child that has been very often ruling the household.
Oh,
to the detriment not of the parent, not just the parents, the siblings. There's like there are like victims here that you don't always recognize, which is their siblings in the house, and it's very stressful for the siblings when they have a child who acts out a lot, especially when the parents and everyone starts tiptoeing around the household in such a way to make sure that you don't set off the one kid who has a problem getting set off, because no one likes it when that happens. And it can lead to a very stressful situation in the household.
So this morning, I did not follow any of your advice. I was extremely reactive.
We'll talk about that in a minute too. So go ahead.
My 4-year-old, and let's just say he's 5 so that maybe you can give me some advice, ran out the front door this morning because he did not want to go to the sitters. Right? I told him, we are going to Miss Deborah's house. This is not something that you can choose to stay home. He ran out the front door and then proceeded to walk all the way around the block. He knows he can't cross the street. So he walked a full city block through our neighborhood, and I was following him, telling him to stop. But I didn't want to run because, Kimball, what happens when I run after the 4-year-old?
He starts running.
He starts running too.
Oh, someone's going to call the
Well,
cops.
there's that.
That was the other.
No, our neighborhood was... it definitely got a show this morning as I'm walking as quickly as I can behind a barefooted toddler who is also walking as quickly as he can, yelling at him to stop. And finally, my husband came around the block the other way and we grabbed him and put him in the car, at which point he screamed all the way to the sitter's house. When we pull up, he says to me, "Oh, don't tell her I was bad," because he doesn't want her to be mad at him too. And I was so upset. I was crying while we were walking around the block. I am yelling, stop. And I am saying, "Oh, you are not going to watch TV for a month," which, like you said, totally outlandish. There's no way. Please, are you kidding me?
Right. Yeah. He'll make it 4 hours. Like I wouldn't get further than that.
So,
no.
Giving him a year's benefit, like what kind of language could I use in that situation other than "this is not a choice, we are going"?
Yeah, we have a nice article on our website, poweringparents.com. It's called "Explain Yourself Once and Move On." You can explain it to your child what the rule is and why, and then you don't have to, like, your child may not understand. They may not get it. They may not want to get it. They may not at 4 years old be able to really understand why they have to go. But that's not really your job as a parent. Your job is to parent. You can explain it once. That's okay. They may or may not agree or get it. They may never get it until they're a parent, and then move on and just make it so. Like that's you're going, and don't matter what, and you don't have to have that conversation much beyond that. What I would suggest is maybe there's a consequence involved, which is that if there's something that he values to do or have or whatever, like a toy or something, here's what we call a task-oriented consequence. You take that away from him. Not for a month, not for a week. We don't want it time-based. We tell parents, you don't want your child to learn how to do time. That's not a useful thing. Just do time, right?
I mean, I hope not, right?
He's got little tally marks
So you
above
don't-
his bed in
I learned how
his
to do
bedroom
time when I
until
was
he gets
4,
the
no big
Nintendo
deal.
back.
That's what a third, like being grounded for a month, that's doing time. You don't want your child to get comfortable doing time. So here's what you do. You take it away until he successfully goes off to the sitters in the morning successfully. If you do it successfully, tomorrow morning you get
That's
it back.
amazing.
If you don't get it back, and then you wait to the next day. And you say, don't you really want it? You should really want it back. It'd be like life's going to be a lot easier.
Right.
When inevitably he does it well, then he gets his toy back. And that's the end of the consequence. So he controls when the consequence ends, not you.
I love that.
It's up to him. So we call that a task-oriented consequence, which are the best ones, which is that they have to complete a task, and then when the task is done, the consequence is over, and it's kind of up to them when they're able to complete it. And if they don't care, if they never do it because they don't care about that toy anymore, then what you've done is you've picked something of no consequence, and you have to work at that.
Yeah,
you need to pick up
exactly.
something of consequence.
So I'm hearing task-oriented consequences, and I've always heard the term logical consequences. If you aren't putting your laundry in the hamper, when I take your laundry hamper into the laundry room to do laundry, anything that's on the floor is not going to get washed. And that's sort of something that I live by with my own child. It's like if you want something like that I'm supposed to do for you because you haven't learned how to do that yet because you're 6, right, then you need to take care of your side of that deal, which is pick up your socks and put them where they belong, right? But how can you apply that same sort of logical consequences to a task orient? I mean, I feel like those are two very different things, and I guess I'm just not seeing the connection between the two right now.
We call it I think the term you use, logical, we call that natural consequences. I think we're probably talking about the same thing. So
okay, yeah.
So what we say is task oriented consequences are one of the types of effective consequences. It's not the only type. Natural consequences are excellent also, and we recommend that parents let natural consequences take their course as long as it's not a safety issue. Like you don't want the natural consequence of your child running across the road to get hit by a car. That's not helpful.
Well, natural consequences, like
But,
no, it doesn't really work
but
that way.
if they throw their game controller across the room and it breaks, you don't replace it until their next birthday or the next Christmas, or they have to earn it back. The natural consequence of breaking your toy is that your toy no longer works and you no longer have your toy.
Sure.
Likewise, the natural consequence of not studying is potentially failing your class. And we will counsel parents that that's not always a bad thing. Like if your child earned an F, your child earned an F. And you don't necessarily have to punish them for that. Like that in and of itself has its own consequences. So like you often want to like ask yourself and be thoughtful as a parent, like is the natural consequence of what they did enough that you can just let it be? And that, the example of breaking something, if your child breaks their phone, you don't have to replace it. If they're generally totally responsible and it's an accident or whatever, there's nothing wrong with like replacing it. But if you told them 10,000 times not to do X and then their phone breaks, that's on them.
Right.
And the natural consequences, they don't have a phone anymore. And you just be like, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to punish you, but you don't have a phone anymore.
Yeah.
So you want to look for the places where there's a natural consequence. And school is one of those things as well. We have a lot of parents that will actually do school work for their kids.
Ew.
Because they like the idea that their child would fail is like, that's just too, like, that's going to hurt the child too much.
They just really love y = mx + b.
Yeah, exactly. They either come into the school and argue to make sure that they don't get failed. Talk to the parent, talk to the teacher and say, you can't fail.
Man.
Or they'll actually do the work for their kids. They'll write papers for them, do all sorts of
Perhaps
stuff.
we should share lists. Students I've taught, parents you've worked with.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because I would guess that list is actually really short, because if they're going to Kimball for help, they're probably at a point where they can't do the homework anymore, right? Like they're just you and I are very familiar with that, right? We've definitely dealt with parents who have come in and yelled at us for a child's bad grade when I've said, this is the rubric. This is the work that the student was expected to do. I've seen them do X, Y, Z. I know they can do A. You know what I mean? And then we get yelled at for it, when really what it sounds like is happening is there's probably more going on behaviorally at home than we're seeing in the classroom, right?
And we do get parents that come to us and go, I just can't do their homework anymore. And we're like, well, then don't.
Yeah.
Then don't. Right. Then don't.
Step one is don't. You don't have to do it. It's useful to point out to parents that failure is not. There's tons of people that failed in the survival. It's not. If you fail 10th grade math, you're not the end of the world.
Right.
But it might be the end of your summer.
There you go. And that's
That-
fine. You lose your summer.
That's the natural consequence.
Yep. Exactly. And those aren't necessarily a bad thing. And you can talk to your child afterwards. Look, this is what happens when whatever. The worst is to shield them from those natural consequences, except in the case of like running into the road.
Of course.
But
I like
if it's a
the
safety issue,
is an asterisk on everything, right? Which is again why I did not run after Kit, because I knew he would either run into the street or run so far that I wouldn't be able to catch him.
Yeah, it sounds like you handled it well, which is like you seemed like you're reasonably
Oh
calm
no,
and walked the neighborhood and
I'm screaming.
Oh, she was screaming.
Oh,
right.
you were
She was
screaming?
screaming.
Okay, I missed
she was
that.
screaming. in the
And
neighborhood. I'm
I
sure
took
of
away
that.
TV for a month.
No doubt.
Which good thing he doesn't know about calendars.
Did the screaming help?
Just the screaming help. No, it just fired him up more. Of course.
Yeah, because we always said if screaming worked, parenting would be easy. You just yell and your
Right.
child would behave well, but it doesn't
No.
work. Or if screaming worked, he goes, my job, as a therapist would be, I'm not a therapist, but James Lehman was a therapist. James Lehman said, my job would be easy. You'd pay me my
And
fee,
I'd yell at you
and
for
I'd
an
yell at
hour?
your kid for 15
Yeah.
minutes, and then, see you next week. Problem solved, but it doesn't work that way. The yelling and screaming doesn't actually work. On the other hand, you should forgive yourself for yelling and screaming because we're all human, and the goal here is not to do everything right 100% of the time because first of all, we don't even know what's 100% right. A lot of this is kind of art. You have to feel your way through it. But second of all, in the heat of the moment, we can't all, we don't react perfectly. So you need to forgive yourself if you don't handle it exactly the way you wanted to. You just have to be able to look in the mirror and recognize that I didn't handle that so well.
Well, I'm really looking forward to this afternoon when I go to pick him up and we can sit down and talk and say, we had a hard morning and I messed up too.
Right. That reconnection piece.
Here's what I think I could have done. What do you think you could have done? And maybe that reflection will lead into some coaching.
And then what we would do in a coaching session is then, okay, try that. Sounds like a good first step. How'd that work? How'd that work tomorrow or the next day? You might have to throw consequences in there. You might not. Could be that just having a conversation solves the problem, whatever. But you want to step back afterwards and say, how did that work? Like, did that work out? Okay? And just sort of be, reflective. And it could be it's the right thing. It just takes 2 or 3 tries also. That's the other thing is it could be you're on the right course, but especially with kids that have behavior problems that have developed over years, they don't change them overnight because of one magic consequence you came up with. It takes, sometimes weeks for them to start coming around. And you might be on the right track. It might be that now you're applying consequences and you're being consistent and everything else, but it takes a little bit a while for the child to come around.
Absolutely. Just like Caitlin said, you're not going to sink free throws the first time you stand on the key.
Exactly.
And I don't want to say that working as a parent or a consultant for parents is the same as training dogs, but what my connection is that it seems like most of the work you do is helping the parents to be able to reflect on their experience and help to anticipate how they're going to handle the next.
Jenny, you're bringing up something really important, which is, yes, we're explaining to parents these things are effective, these things are ineffective. Do the effective things a lot more and the ineffective things a lot less. And when you slip and do ineffective things once in a while, forgive yourself. Like, we're all human, we're trying to do our best, but do more of the effective stuff. And here's what they are. And we coach you and help you through, identify what those things are, and then help you to execute it also, which is a lot of that's just support, like you're doing the right thing. And it's sometimes hard to get that support from your family and friends because there's just a lot of stuff tied up in your family and friends when your kids have behavior issues and stuff, and there's judgment going on or whatever. That's why it's nice to have an outside resource. It's true. Yes, we're training parents a lot on more effective parenting skills, but we also point something else out, and this is just really important, which is that even though there's things that are effective and ineffective, you're not responsible for your child's behavior. Your child is. And we tell parents that it's the child's decision to do those things, not your decision. And you can't blame yourself for your child's behavior. We can help you to be a more effective parent, but at the end of the day, if your child's sitting in the middle of the kitchen and says, F you, mom, or whatever, you know what I mean? Just at that moment, they know that's not the right thing to do, and they have a decision to make, and they decided to do that, and don't take responsibility for that. Don't internalize and say to yourself, the reason they're doing that is because I'm a bad parent. One, it's not true. It's your child's behavior. It's not yours. Two, it's not effective because you want the accountability on your child, not you. Your child's the only person capable of changing their behavior, not you. You can't make your child do anything. You can't make your child behave a certain way. It's up to your child. And then third of all, the other reason why it's so important is to not blame yourself for your child's behavior is that actually there's two more reasons. I think I had two going already. I'm losing track, but
no, I love it.
Your child will figure out as they get older, they'll figure out that you feel guilty, that you haven't been a good parent. And that's why they're acting out. And they'll use that to manipulate you. They will guilt you into things, and which is bad. And here's what's even worse. They don't use it for manipulation. They believe that they can't behave well because they didn't have a good parent.
Oh.
And at that point, they stop taking
Responsibility.
responsibility, and they blame where they are in life because of what the parent did, and that they have no what we call agency. They have no impact over what they can do moving forward. That's not where you want it. You want the accountability on your child. Don't take responsibility for your child's behavior. You want the accountability on your child. Just like you can't go to the gym and work out and expect your child's muscles to grow. Like they have to do it. They're the only ones who can learn how to behave better. You just need to help them along.
I think about this circle of impact.
Circle of impact?
The idea that you can draw a circle around yourself and there are things inside that circle that you can influence. And there are things outside that circle. And outside that circle is every other human body.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I did for like 3 years, ran a marriage ministry at our church.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked with a program. We bought a program and we worked the program with the couples that were in it. And that was the first thing they said, which is draw a circle around yourself, and you're only allowed to work on the person inside that circle.
I love that. I love that.
Because that's the only person you can work on, really. I mean, you can
Right.
only work on that person. You can't make the other person sort of do anything. So
Was it re-engage?
yeah, it was re-engage. Yeah, we did re-engage.
My parents taught that for years too.
Well, I have like multiple copies on my shelf right behind me.
I think they ran it for 6 or 7 years. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. It's awesome. We have the couples that went through it with us too. We've remained like really, really close friends.
Well, they actually went through it together as empty nesters and said, let's do this. And then became a lead mentor couple and did it for years.
Yeah, it was re-engage. That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just having a moment right now. You guys are talking about re-engage, and I've heard of that program, and I haven't participated in myself, but I am interested. That said, I'm having a little epiphany, and I am really I have very much internalized criticism in any way, shape, and form, and it's one of the reasons that I am as type A, that as Jenny will tell you that I am. I am terrified of failing at things, and I feel like parenting is one of those things that I'm just constantly feeling like, am I actually good at this thing, right?
Oh, Caitlin, you are.
And no, it's just how I am.
No, I know.
Like,
There's a voice in your head. We talked about that.
Right. And mine in particular feels very negative often. And part of that is my own realization that I have ADHD, and that's why I've been struggling with all these things for much of my life. But the other part of it is parenting is so much harder than anyone ever tells you that it's going to be, right? Like everyone says, oh, it's so hard. And they all talk about how you don't get any sleep when you have a baby, but they don't talk about how it gets harder when your kids get older because every little trick that you had no longer works. And when the kid is a baby, there's like one of 3 things that could be wrong, right? They're like tired or hungry or sleepy. And those are easy fixes. But these other things are so different and so challenging. And so I'm hearing this, you are not to blame for your child's behavior. Your child is accountable for their own actions. And that is just, of course, you know that, right? And it's something that I've told my own students. You are accountable for your own actions. But then having that be said to you as a parent is a very different feeling than saying it to a student who's a 12-year-old, right? It just feels, I'm just having a little moment. It just feels very freeing, I think is the word I want to use.
Comforting.
To know that, like, this is a system that is in place to help your child be accountable for their actions. You did not cause their actions, right?
It takes a big weight off of parents' shoulders when you let them know that they're not actually responsible. And then a lot of times, even with consequences, they'll say that my kid doesn't care about the consequences, and maybe it's not a very good consequence, but let's say it is. It really is a consequence of consequence. Like, it matters to the kid, and it does. But they say it doesn't, and they're going to try to wait you out. They're going to pretend it doesn't bother them. Mm-hmm. Parents go, "What do I do in that case? Like, it's not working for them. They're still doing the bad behavior." We just say, stay the course. The consequence is real. It seems like a good consequence. It probably does. It probably is having an impact, but you can't quite see it. And then we say this other thing to them, which is that old expression that you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Mm-hmm. Consequences, these things don't make your child drink. What they do is they make their child thirsty. You make the horse thirsty, and eventually they're going to drink. So that's how you get at it. And sometimes it takes patience. Sometimes it happens very quickly. And you mentioned something about, like, the whole school thing. I point this out to a lot of parents too, which is that, or actually, Jenny, you were saying this when you dropped your child off at daycare or the sitter's house. Your child was like, don't tell her, like.
And it's not because she's mean and abusive. It's because he wanted to be able to start over.
Right.
That's actually a good sign. That's most kids in this situation that we see, which is that with the parent, they're having a hard time. Outside of the parent, they're actually okay.
Right.
So there's a lot of kids that have real problem at home with the parents, or with one of the parents, but not the other. Oh. And in school, they're okay, because when there's real rules and there's real consequences, they fall into line. And when they're at home, when they're having there's some type of power struggle with a parent, they're not falling into line. That's actually good news, because that's really solvable. Like, we have such incredible rate of solving those problems. The more difficult one, for which there are still very good effective and ineffective techniques, but which is more challenge, is the parent that has a child that is incredibly defiant at home, and at school is incredibly defiant, with the police is incredibly defiant, with everyone is incredibly defiant. And a lot of these kids it doesn't happen all that often, but they'll have something that we call ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder. Mm-hmm. And that's a different challenge. So, but that's few of the cases. And we have programs to address that specifically. And there's a lot of ways you can be successful with that. But we point out to parents, which is the majority of the parents come to us, if your child is not behaving well at home, but generally at school they're okay, that's good news, because that means that the issue is between you and your child and the rules somehow, and we can solve that problem by making some adjustments.
I specialize in middle school. Caitlin does as well. And I have sat across the table from many, many parents and said, "Oh no, but they're great at school." And there's social pressure to behave. There's clear actions and consequences, and they feel safest at home. And so to let to be vulnerable and let themselves go and not solve problems, it's because they know that mom's going to wake up and love them the next day.
One of our popular articles is angel child or devil child. Why does my child save their worst behavior for me? And actually, the parents get annoyed. The parents get annoyed when the teachers tell them how wonderful it is to have them in class. And you're like, what are you talking about?
What?
Like,
yeah. No, it's so funny because I actually, when I was doing research for this episode, I found that article and I definitely was like, I feel like this person is in my house. Like exactly. I mean, and we've come a long way with our son, and we've had to do some coaching sessions and things like that. And we still see these flare-ups, and I'm planning to be all over this website like white on rice for the next, 14 years of my life. But either way, knowing that the support is here, but also knowing that my child is a pain for me is really, really, really frustrating. Like, why, and it makes, that's when you really internalize it as a parent. Like, why is it that this child is so difficult for me, but not necessarily for, Miss Jenny at school? That is a very difficult thing to wrestle with as a parent. So
So can I address that one specifically?
Yes, please do. Please do.
Okay, number one, going back to the beginning of our conversation, these are problem-solving techniques the child's using. The child through the conflict you're having is somehow solving a problem, or trying to solve a problem, but not in a way that's effective or the way you want it to happen. So there's some of that going on, and the other is, and I try to mention this in every podcast that I'm on, which is, don't personalize that behavior. View it as a behavior problem and don't take it personally as they do it to you personally as an individual. Just see that they're doing it to the authority figure in the household. And they would have done it with any parent because it really is a behavior problem. And when you internalize it, your likelihood of responding calmly goes way down. And it's very important to be calm in these situations. And your likelihood of being hurt and feeling guilty goes way down because you feel like you've sacrificed for your child for all these years. And what do you get for it? They hate you. Like we have one of our articles says, "I hate you, Mom. I wish you were dead." And we wrote that because that's what parents write into us. That like the daughter was saying that to her, and she's like, "I loved you. Like I've brought you up, made all these sacrifices. How can you say that to me?" View it as a behavior problem, and don't take it personally because it's effective and it's true. And third of all, we've had such good success with parents and kids is that your child's going to come back around and your child's going to turn out great. And if you've personalized this, it's going to be so much harder to offer your child grace and forgiveness if you've personalized it.
Yes.
So once they start behaving better, you want to be able to wipe the slate clean and say, you're forgiven. The slate's clean. Adolescence is hard. I get it. I don't care that you told me to F off. I don't care that whatever you like.
It's done.
That's done. Moving forward, like, you want to have a great relationship with your child. And if you personalize that behavior, then it makes it much more difficult. So we're very adamant about telling parents, view it as a behavior problem.
Wow.
So as we wrap up, kind of walk me through the process if you're a parent who would like to engage your services and be part of your program.
The most important thing is to go to empoweringparents.com. And everything I'm talking about, our foundation is an online program called the Total Transformation Program, and you can sign up for it on our website. We have hundreds of free articles on our websites as well, but it's an online learning system. So when you subscribe, you can start it immediately. It's done by this guy named James Lehman, who himself was he was a therapist for 30 years working with kids in group homes, but he was also a highly defiant child who spent a significant portion of his early years in and out of prison and having a lot of problems. So he went through this whole process and turned his life around, and then spent his entire career, went to college, went to Fordham University, Boston University, and then had 30-year career working with defiant kids, mostly in a group home setting. So you can come to our website, you can sign up for the program, and everything I've talked about is all part of the training and the Total Transformation Program. And there are several other programs that go along with it. And that can all be done right from your computer or your tablet. You can stream and work through the programs. And then you can sign up for coaching as well. So if you want to talk to one of our coaches, and what they do is they coach you through the programs. You talk about setting up a menu of consequences. You may just want to vent during the coaching sessions. You can do that as well. Exactly.
I mean, that's important. You have to have a safe space to do that, right? Like that's
you do. A lot of it's just listening. Like have them say the words out loud that, and a lot of times the words are things like, I don't like my child. I don't like my child.
Right. And I think that's really important. I've said this to my husband several times, and I may or may not have stolen it from Parks and Rec, but the line is, I love you and I like you, because they're different things, right? Like I love my child every day, 24/7. There is no question. I don't always like being around him. And that's a very real thing for, I think, all parents. And I think we're finally coming to that realization as a society that like not every part of parenting is great. And it's okay to talk about how not every part of parenting is great. But that's really, really, really interesting that you just brought that up. That's
and for a lot of parents, like it's so hard for them to say those words in front of like their family or even their friends. Like there's embarrassment involved, a whole bunch of things. So but you come to us and we've heard it all. Like I actually, if you go to empoweringparents.com and find an article that looks of interest, scroll down to the bottom and read the comments. We have an active comment section, and you'll realize you are not alone.
No, you are not alone.
You are not alone. We don't
just bookmarked it for midnight tonight when I'm doing my, what is that, doom scrolling. Say, okay.
Doom scrolling, right.
Who else chased someone around the block today?
What I was saying, our coaching is all, it's if you sign up, you get you get a coach assigned to you. You get their calendar, and you can sign up for a call tomorrow. You could just 24 hours in advance. So not tomorrow. You could sign up a call. Yeah, you could sign up for a call for Monday.
Yeah.
You could, and you're talking to one of our coaches on Monday. So
That's pretty important. Like just knowing that resource is there, and there's free articles for people who can't necessarily access the other stuff. That's a really big deal, and it's a great resource. And again, I've spent some time on the website, and it is totally worth looking at and getting a little bit of guidance here and there. And even again, just knowing that you're not alone in any parenting struggles that you might be having.
amen.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This was so empowering.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been great.
We're really glad you came. It's been great, and anytime you ever want to come back, we would be more than happy to have you.
You gave us so many great things today that I think single, two-parent household, co-parenting experience, like I think the words that we shared today are really applicable to all parenting relationships. But I would love to get into the weeds and talk to you about working in a co-parenting relationship. So hopefully you'll come back. That would be great.
I'd love to. That'd be great.
So, all right. Well, this is the time in the show where I have to tell everyone, please like us and love us and rate us and review us and say all the nice things to all the people you know.
Absolutely. And Kimball, if you just want to take one last plug at anything else that you want to share, we know empoweringparents.com is where we're going to go. Is there anything else that you want our listeners to know?
Yes. When you go to empoweringparents.com, if you don't do anything else, sign up for our newsletter. There'll be buttons all over the place. You can sign up for our mailing list, and you'll get sent to you 2 to 3 parenting articles a week. That's probably your best.
Great.
Your best.
It's a
bet.
big green button
That's
right
great.
at the top, guys.
Yeah. You can
That
find
is.
it.
That's what it is. It's the green button.
All right, y'all. This is when I say it. Whether you're parenting in an empowering way or you're chasing a 4-year-old around the block, make good choices.
And if you're a parent, you're doing great.
Bye.
Hey friends, thanks for listening to the CK and GK podcast. Find us at CK and GK podcast on Instagram and Twitter, and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or anywhere else that you pod. See you next time.